This story was sent in by Juliet from Onitsha, Nigeria. Please, as you watch, don't forget to subscribe and follow our social media handles as we tell our touching tales. My name is Juliet and I live in Onitsha, Nigeria. My story is a pathetic story of ignorance, youthful stupidity, and betrayal. My husband and I got married in the year 2021. It was a lavish wedding, a talk of the town as the both of us were from the same village in Enugu State. My husband had met me when I was in senior secondary 5 in the secondary school when he came home for the Christmas holiday. From the day he set his eyes on me, he vowed never to let me go. Initially, I was not interested, but some of my friends talked me into accepting his friendship proposal on the grounds that it would only be a friendship level and nothing more. He agreed and we started off smoothly. And afterwards, everything happened so fast that I could not comprehend it. I had planned that it would be for a while thing, which will end as soon as I leave the secondary school for the university. But within the few months that followed our meeting, he proved to be a wonderful and interesting gentleman that before I knew it, we were planning our wedding. After our wedding, I packed in with him in his house in the Awada area of Onitsha. I had visited him once or twice during my secondary school days. In those days, I used to lie to my parents that our Girls Guide organization was going for 2 or 3 days camping. My mother would then ask to verify from my best friend Uju, who would affirm to the lie that we were going for a camping or excursion. I would then travel to Onitsha for 3 days. Whenever I returned, I shared my gift and money with Uju. It was a room and parlor self-contained apartment. I loved it. I loved the cleanliness of it. My husband-to-be was a very clean man. His home then was always tidy and I loved it that way. He cooked very well too. He washed very well. He was everything any woman would want for a husband. Let me not forget to add that on top of it all, he was a caring man, not stingy to me at all. So in one of my visits after graduating from secondary school, I could not hesitate to say yes to his marriage proposal. The marriage started very well. I could remember how he showered me with gifts, how he took me to different shopping plazas for shopping sprees. He never allowed me to enter the kitchen or even allowed me wash clothes. He either washed our clothes himself or took them to the dry cleaner. He either cooked or took us to the eatery. I must admit that this was the beginning of our problem as a couple. After 1 year of our marriage, I became entitled to these things that they never satisfied me. I wanted more from him. I have already jettisoned the idea of going to the university. What was the need when I had gotten everything any woman would want in life? At this point, also, my husband was getting fed up with doing most of these things himself. His business was flourishing and expanding, and with it came the demand for most of his attention. He was a trader in the popular Onitsha main market, and he was doing well for himself in his line of business. For me, there was no going back. I could not get myself to now begin to cook and wash the clothes or even sweep the house, having fixed the longest nail, even though I was a full housewife. It became a problem in the house for us that we almost quarreled every night when he returned at home to meet the house unkept and the morning dishes still in the sink. If you don't like it, get us a house help, I always told him. I am neither your cook nor your laundryman. After one of those fights, he sent for and got one boy from the village. I thought he was for the house, but it was not to be. The boy would help in the house in the morning before going to the shop, and when they returned home at night, they would meet the house the way they left it, or even worse. Some nights, they would resume in the kitchen, no matter how late, to prepare dinner for us, and sometimes when market was good, they came home with dinner bought from the fast food and never from a booker. I have once warned him, Stanley, never to buy me food from the booker, so he stopped. The atmosphere in the house ceased to be cordial a long time ago, but I never bothered a bit. All I knew was that I was the woman of the house, and it was my right for my husband to treat me like a queen. Anything short of that was unacceptable. It was in this state of my marriage that Maureen packed into the compound. She was 7 years older than me. She relocated from another part of town. We had everything in common, and we both stayed at home when others had gone for their businesses, even though she used to have a shop in Ochanja Market where she sold clothes. According to her, she wanted to rest for a while before resuming her business. So we both used those her free periods to become used to each other. We became gistmates and told ourselves everything about ourselves. Maureen had never been married before, and according to her, she had no intention of doing so in the nearest future. Men are evil, she once told me after one of my daily exchanges with my husband. Any woman that wants to fulfill her purpose in life must avoid them. With that, I saw Maureen as a confidant, the only person that understood life from my angle. So to Maureen, I ran each time I had problem with my husband, and she gave me helpful advice on how to handle my husband. I must admit that since Maureen started advising me, my husband began to stay out late at night, and in one of those days, he slept outside for 2 days. Don't bother yourself, she told me when I went to her to complain. You don't know how men behave. He must be chilling with one of his girlfriends now. And that will not bother you if you were in my shoes, I asked. Why would it bother me? If I were in your shoes, I will find myself a boyfriend. He must not go unpunished. If I were you, I would take my revenge. With that, I became satisfied. If my husband does not subpedal from his ways, sooner than later, I will find myself a man friend to ease my pain in this toxic relationship. My marriage to my husband became more and more strained for as long as I continued confiding in Maury, but I could not see it. I was blinded by both of youthful exuberance and entitled mentality. Then one fateful day it happened. Out of the quest to bring my husband to submission, I had stressed my husband to the point that he lifted his hands for the first time after 3 years of our marriage and laid them on me. It was all Maureen's idea. It is the woman's place to rule over her home. A husband must submit to the desires of his wife. If he refuses, the house must be on fire until he succumbs, she once told me. During the fight, it was Maureen that came to separate us. She took me to her room in pretense of wanting the fight to stop. Once in her room, she started, Your husband has done the worst. Why must he dare to lay his filthy hands on you? Look, you must put an end to this. But what should I do? I asked innocently. You must leave the house and go back to the village. You know he loves you so much and cannot do without you. When you go home, he will come to take you back. Then you will give him your condition to continue living with him. That was a very good advice. Maureen was in fact a genius in marriage counseling. When I left her room, I was calm. My husband tried to apologize, and I told him everything was fine. That morning, he took his shower and went to shop after leaving some money generously for me on the table. As soon as he left, I, I packed my things and went straight to the park and returned back to the village. In the village, I waited patiently for him to come so that I would give him my condition if I must continue as his wife. At first, Maureen and I had suspected that 3 months would not pass until he came running to me. But as 3 months passed and the fourth month came, my patience began to wane. But I must not be the one to go running back. That should never happen. 4 months became five, then six, then seven, and in the middle of the eighth month, it became clear that all was not well. How can my husband live for over 7 months without me? Was my departure a good riddance to a bad nonsense that I had been to him? At this point, I must change my position. These 7 months had not been easy for me in the village. I had gone lean because my source had stopped and I was no longer enjoying the way that I used to. I must swallow my pride and go back now before it is too late. My mother had always told me that but in my pride I refused to heed even though I did not tell her the reason I came back in the first place. Whoever advised you to leave your husband and come home to stay in the village must be your biggest enemy. Go back to your husband and settle whatever trouble it is you have with him, she had told me. That was 4 months ago. Now I desperately wanted to go home to my husband. I have also made up my mind to change my attitude towards him and be a good wife to him, having realized that it was not he that could not do without me. It was I that cannot do without him. So when Maureen opened the door and stood before me with her heavy pregnancy, it dawned on me that I have committed the greatest blunder of my life. What can I say? What can I do? She was heavily pregnant for my husband. No wonder my husband did not give a damn about me in the village. Are you still standing there? Her voice jacked me out of my thought. So you did this to me, Maureen, I said, almost in tears that will later come down in its abundance. My dear, I did not do anything to you. You were the one that decided to throw away what you had. You had such a nice husband, and you joked with him, abused him as you wished. I valued him and wanted him, so I positioned myself to get him whenever you dropped him. Look at me growing old without even a husband, not even a bad husband, talk less of one as good as yours. But you are the one advising me against him. If not for you, I would not have been having these problems with him, I replied weakly. Will you shut up your mouth? Are you still a baby? Do you feed from your nostrils? Is it every advice that you take without thinking? Please leave here before my husband returns. After all, you have not even given him a child. So go and find yourself a new husband. If you like, when you find one, continue in your foolishness. With that, she entered the house and slammed the door. It was then that the folly of my deeds down on me, and the tears came tumbling down. That night, when her husband came back, he was magnanimous enough to explain the situation to me. Ever since I left from the village, Maureen had filled the gap that I left. She washed his clothes and helped him clean the house. She even began to cook for him, and he began to feel relieved of his stress. He was contemplating coming to the village for me, but Maureen advised against it, saying it saying he should give me more time to process the enormity of my action. One night, after the day's stress and hustle, she made him a special dinner in her house, and after a cool shower and feeding, she had a good sex with him. It was the best for a long time, as they both were hungry for it. Then it happened again and again and again. Now they are inseparable because she had stolen his heart. She is now 6 months pregnant, a feat which I could not achieve because I was busy making trouble looking for ways to subdue him instead of building with him. In fact, there was nothing he could do about it. They have planned an elaborate traditional wedding after her delivery in a few months' time. I would be invited if I wished, but for the both of us, it was over. That night, he drove me to the hotel nearest to the park and lodged me there. He also gave me a large sum of money for my transportation and upkeep for a long time, but it was over. Obviously, things has really been going well for him, but I was no longer part of it. Throughout the night, I cried my heart out. The next morning, I boarded a bus back to the village to wait the return of his dowry, according to the tradition of our people.